And what to do, KTTV Live? This is KT, and I'm coming at another episode of KTTV Live with, oh my God, one of the most special people that I know, strongest people that I know, Dr. Teresa Smith, aka Dr. TAS. How you doing today, Dr. TAS?
I am doing great, Kendrick. I hope you are.
I am. Now that we made this happen, we've been working together for a while, but now getting a chance to just talk one on one about the project, but also about the awesome things, I'm feeling good. So just jumping right into things. Before we get started, and I know you can appreciate this, I always like to do a wellness check to see how people have been doing during this crazy time. So how have you been doing during the pandemic and staying safe?
Well, I'm going to tell you, thank you for the question. I have been on safety overload. And I know some people like overload. Yeah. I am still wiping down things. I was one of those individuals who bought into the idea of wiping down products when you brought them home. I'm still doing that. I am social distancing when I do go out. I, um, how do I want to say it? I'm just very conscious of it. In another life, I worked in medicine. So I really was following the information about the pandemic really closely last year. And so just having a little bit of knowledge, medical knowledge, and then listening to what they were saying, it made me very, very conscious of it. And so I haven't stopped. I'm still social distancing. I'm wearing my mask. I plan to get the vaccine. Because I just think that with the world the way it is now and things haven't come to a halt, we need to be in a position where we can move forward. And it's going to take everyone to play a role in that. So that's how I'm looking at the pandemic and how we move forward in 2021.
Man, I agree. It is going to take everyone because, we still have some people who are kind of afraid to get the vaccine, and so uh, I just want to see how that works as far as being in the room without them. Do you keep your mask off? Still uncharted times. We come so far, yet so far to go.
Absolutely.
Hey, so just giving us a little bit of background before we jump into things, because I like people to know don't be just no small people here. We got the big boss in the building. So if you can give us a little background on you, and even some of your work in the counseling field.
Okay. Um, you know, I mentioned that I worked in medicine, and I'll be honest, I started out working in the clinical research area when I was a student at UNC, this University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, because I know this is a broad broadcast, and some folks won't know what UNC means. But at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, our state hospital had a clinical research unit, and I started working there. And at that time, I was getting my undergraduate degree in criminal justice and psychology. And so from there, I migrated to the actual children's wing of psychiatry rather. And so that was my first really delving into my love of psych. It allowed me to sort of couple the criminal justice and psychology degree that I had. But from there, I progressed through some of the medical clinics as I was working on my master's in school counseling. And then I became a school counselor. And, I don't take anything for granted. I started working with alternative school students. And so it helped me to understand the needs of learners who sometimes are disenfranchised because these were kids who had all of the intellect. And I'll never forget one. I saw him about 5 years ago in an elevator. And, I would tell him, "You're just so smart. You're brilliant." And he would say, "Miss Neal, don't say that," because it was important for him to fit in. And so when I saw him years later, he was telling me, he was taking care of his dad and things were much better. And I'll be honest, sometimes folks, when they hear alternative school, they think you're only talking about minority students. But this was a young white male and he was the smartest thing, but he did not want folks to know that. His parents were divorced. And so he had some issues that he was dealing with on the home front. But fast forward, when I met him in the elevator, he was telling me how things had come full circle. And he was in college, he was at the community college. So for me, that was like, yes, sometimes you don't see your successes and the impact that you have on individuals, particularly students, but I was able to see that. And so I left there and I went to I started working in a traditional school setting. I worked at what I always call the premier high school, at that time, Chapel Hill High School. And I worked with all students there. And eventually I transitioned to vocational rehabilitation. And I say that because I was a school VR counselor. And most states have vocational rehabilitation, and their job is to help students who have disabilities transition into the world of work. And that takes many components, be it training, be it on the job training, be it higher ed training. And so they provide supports to make sure that those students are successful. And from there, I transitioned to our State Department of Education, where I was the state consultant for school counselors, school social workers, and school psychologists. And I absolutely loved it. I had an opportunity to work with district level folks and higher ed folks, and we developed the school counseling, school social worker, and school psychologist professional standards. And from there, the evaluation system was made that paired with it. And the standards are so important because they informed our higher ed partners how to teach and train those professionals. And so I love doing that. I went back into the school system, worked at the district level as a cultural linguistic competency coordinator. I love doing that, but at the same time, I was working part-time as a adjunct instructor. And so I'd done things at the community college before, but at that time I was working at North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro, North Carolina. And
Mhm.
so I was teaching school counseling students. And I loved it because for me, I had an opportunity to help them to connect the dots. Because sometimes in education, anyway, individuals, they know their content, but they don't know the educational system. And they come into the system and they burn out quickly because they don't understand how the system works, how policies are enacted, what's the real role of the U.S. Department of Education as it relates to my job in the building. And so with my students, I was able to help them to see the connection between the federal government, U.S. Department of Ed, their state education agencies, and then the school districts and how they fitted into that. And so, from there, I kind of transitioned over to Capella University teaching students, counseling students, and school counseling students doing some of the same things at residency in our fieldwork or our clinical courses. And so it just kind of evolved from there. I will throw this out there since we're given a brief resume. I also I was a 21st Century Communities Learning Center
Yeah.
program director. And that's important because those individuals, those grants, they're funded through the U.S. Department of Ed. The money comes down to the state education agencies, and school districts and community partners are able to apply for those grants. And they are there to help the schools bridge the demand or the need to help those students after school. Because for some of our students, they need additional help after the school day ends. And the 21st Century Community Learning Centers, that's what they're there for. So I had an opportunity to be a program director at one of those programs for several years. And I found it very rewarding because
Yeah.
we were able to see kids progress from elementary, and some of them were high elementary, we got them, and some are about to graduate. So they're getting older. I'm thankful getting older too, but to see the progress of those students. So that's
Yeah.
sort of, some of the work that I've done in the counseling field.
Man. And when you think about that, you think about the transition from that K to 12 counselor to the college world. Was there a certain point when you said this this ain't K through 12? Like, was it something that hit you and said, whoa?
Well, you know, I have a sister, and she has worked in many different. Well, she's worked in insurance, and she's worked in other areas. And I think the thing that I would say, because we often dialogue, it's really about the customer service.
Mhm.
And I say customer service because in every arena is always customer service. We don't necessarily think about it that way, but that's what it was. When I transitioned into the higher ed, I realized the customer service aspect of it and how tedious it is trying to find the right balance of being the instructor, but also meeting all of the needs of the learner. And I speak with one of my colleagues, and he and I talk often, and he says to me that even in the brick and mortar universities now, because I'm in a virtual university, that is the same thing because our clientele has shifted so much that it's always about finding that right mix of delivering the appropriate services, but somehow I'm going to say meeting that holistic need of the learner or of the student. So that's when I realized, oh no, you're not in Kansas anymore. You're in higher ed, and you've got to shift how you do things.
Man, yeah, because that's a whole different. That's a grown up.
Grown up.
So we had the pleasure of getting together, and I had the pleasure of working with you, with Dr. Wish on the guide to healthy schools, and so also on the articles that we put together with him. So whenever I would call, we on the conference call, Dr. Tosh, you always had the good stuff. Like you said, well, let me think about it real quick. So talk to me a little bit about your role as explaining it to everyone. And what inspired you to give time to this project in a world of moving so fast?
I am so fortunate that Dr. Wish saw something in me and reached out to me. I was very honored to be asked to be a part of his project. And, the Healthy School Guide or Guide to Healthy Schools, what intrigued me was he looked at a holistic approach to serving our K 12 students. And so for me, having worked in medicine, I've got that medical aspect, which is for this project, you're talking that physical piece. So that always intrigues me. And then having always been fascinated by psychology, psychiatry, that emotional piece and how it influences and motivates our students or people in general, it just seemed like a perfect marriage at that time because I saw the importance of school districts understanding that it's not just academics alone. Because remember, I've worked in K 12 at every level and I've had an after school program. So it's not just the academics. If a child is hungry, they're not going to be able to focus on the schoolwork no matter how much they want to. If the child has had something going on at home, and it doesn't have to be as drastic or perhaps the negativity that sometimes people think, it could be that somebody is sick. That's a sad thing. It could be that someone has passed. There doesn't have to be violence, is when I say a negative thing. But how does that child manage and deal with the loss of someone from an emotional perspective? How do they put that in context to then be able to come to school, focus on the curriculum that we're trying to teach them, and be successful? And what I found is that we prepare our educators with all the pedagogy, they know their content, but because the world has changed so fast and is continually to change, they don't always know how to interact with our students and take in consideration all of the social concerns that may be preventing them from being successful. And, again, I'll throw out, having worked with VR and done a lot of different things, and worked with social workers. And I can remember people thinking only social workers removed barriers. But we all have to remove the barriers. It's like peeling the onion. You're going to have to peel back what barrier or what concern, what barrier may be preventing that child from engaging appropriately in your courseroom or your classroom in order to make headway. So it's not this particular educator's job. It's not this particular one's job. It's everybody's job to come in hand to try to provide the best education environment for all students. And so to me, I saw the Guide to Healthy Schools as a framework to help all stakeholders figure out how they bring in their piece into this almost like a quilt. So that it's almost like you're enveloping the students within this quilt that is so multifaceted or multicolored that everybody plays a key role from the school personnel to the community folks. And I just thought, what a remarkable way to do it, because the way that Dr. Wish has developed the guide, it's so user friendly for everyone. You don't have to be an educator in order to utilize the guide. It's for
Yeah.
everyone. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is perfect. And so I'm like, thank you, sign me up.
Yeah. Right now, Dr. Tiles, that answer was excellent, but you know, these youngsters don't know about that quilt. They
No, 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 no.
I ain't know about that quilt, but I understand totally what you're saying about the colors and just the good mix. And that was another reason I was on, because you don't have to be an educator or in the class. You know, for the second book, he really did do a good job of just hitting home, saying, "I want this to be for the parents that's at home as well." You
Yes.
know, so awesome. Now, as I posted the flyer, and I know you know about this because you talk about it, and it's on your website, but it's using adversity to push you into your purpose. So now, when you talk to your audience or talking to your clients on this subject, how do you tell them to go about achieving a goal like that?
You know, I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to do a shameless plug. I don't usually plug, but I'm going to plug. This is my book,
Yes.
How Pushing You Into Your Purpose, How Overcoming Life's Adversities Can Push You Into Your Purpose. You know, the one thing that I want to say about that is it is truly a journey. Every day that you get up, you get a little closer because all of us experience adversity. But what I try to help my clients do is reframe. So, we've all, or most of us have heard, the glass is half empty, or is the glass half empty, or is it half full? That's about reframing. How do you see it? Do you see it half empty, or do you see it half full? If I see it half full, even when I make that statement, I feel a little flutter in my heart. That's a good flutter. When I say it's half empty, I don't feel the same sense of comfort, because when we look at it as being empty, it's as if something is missing and we've got to now refill it. And so, what I try to help them to do is garner the right perspective, which is a constant struggle, because as we encounter life incidents all day long. No matter what type of work you do, whether you're retired, you're encountering something every day, even if it's just family. And as I like to say, even if it's just yourself, because sometimes our mind will get away from us and you'll be having an internal battle with yourself. You have to learn to just stop. And with one person that I've worked with, that I probably will mention throughout, they have been out of work like a lot of people. And, they maintained a positive attitude some days. The next time I would be with them, they weren't quite as positive. They were up sometimes, they were angry, they were despondent. And I kept saying to them, we've got a plan, let's work the plan. Sometimes they would work the plan, sometimes they wouldn't. But what I found was that they had to become secure in where they were. And we were in a session last week, and they had had a breakthrough. They were sharing some things, and I said, "Now, didn't we already talk about that?" They were like, "Yeah, but I wasn't ready at that point."
Mm-hmm.
And that was so meaningful for me, because the thing is, you can't rush the process. And that's the reason I say it's a journey, and you're not in competition with anyone else, because everybody runs the race at their own pace. But you still have to stay focused. You have to look at your situation and evaluate it for what it is, and then determine what you can do about it. And understand you may change the situation, but it doesn't change overnight. It's
Yeah.
baby steps, and that's okay. And so that's what I really have tried to help folks to understand, regardless of what their concerns are, that it's about maintaining perspective. It's about seeing things clearly and understanding that sometimes you're going to feel a little schizophrenic because you're operating in two different worlds, even within yourself, because it's like, well, I don't want to have to, this is real old language. I don't want to have to front. I don't want to, put on that mask. I want to be who I am. But depending upon what the situation is, you're going to have to do that, because you've got to look at what the consequences are. You just can't go in there, your boss, and give them a piece of your mind.
Yeah.
Not if you want to have a job, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And so just helping people work through those emotions in a safe space. And that's how I've helped them to push through the diverse adversity to the other side of it.
Yeah, man, and getting to that other side. I tell you, when it first started, you do not see the other side of anything. You know,
No.
coming off the whole snowstorm and the whole pipe thing. Day one, I going 3 weeks out. I didn't see that ending no time soon. So I understand totally what you mean. But life kept going, and I had to show up at that work, whether you got water or not.
Yes.
So that is cool. So now the common theme that you explained when you was telling us a little bit about you that we've been talking about is service for others, right? So in understanding your background and understanding the tragic moment that you talked about on the site, um, what was it that really pushed you into really taking other people's problems onto your shoulders?
You know, I think about that sometimes. And I think it was when I was in middle school, I had a classmate and she told me that her parents were divorcing. Now, this was in the 70s, and I don't mind saying that because I think I look good to have been a middle schooler in the 70s. You got to own it now, guys. You got to own it.
Yeah.
And so when she told me that my parents were married and they're still married, I'd never really experienced divorce, but I knew it was important for her to talk to me about it. And I had two incidents happening when I was in middle school. And so, sure enough, her parents divorced. And she moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, to be with her and live with her dad. Well, when I think about it now, that's sort of even in this day and age, usually the kids remain with the mother, but she didn't. And so I never forgot her. And then I had another classmate who had been raped. And she shared that with me. And the individual that raped her was prosecuted. And so we would talk just like I would talk with the other one. And so what I found was that I liked being that sounding board. And it became sort of second nature for me.
Mhm,
And so when I looked at, what do you want to do? I always knew it was either going to be law or medicine.
mhm,
But in an odd sort of way, I do it all the things that I like. I somehow am in a position where I get to access all of it. Because as a counselor or as a coach, you need to know a little bit about law. You need to know a little bit about medicine. You need to understand the psychology and the psychiatry and the sociology and how all of those things fit together. And for me, it was just a perfect fit. And I will say this to you. I think what really solidified it for me when I was in high school, there was an older lady that lived up the street from me. And one morning, her husband left home and he managed to get several houses up the street and he sat on the porch. And when the people walked outside, he was sitting there. He had already died.
mhm,
And when I came home, there was a gentleman, a young man at our school who worked with the EMS. And I guess I saw the EMS before I went to school and I asked him, what happened? And he told me. And so when I came home that day, I got off the bus at my parents' house and I went immediately to her house.
mhm,
And my senior year, I basically stayed with her because she didn't have kids that lived in our town. And I would take her to buy her groceries, and I would listen to her, and I would talk with her. And I spent the night with her, and so that taught me the importance of being there for somebody. And I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. I don't usually get emotional when I talk about it, but it taught me the importance of being there for somebody because she didn't have anybody. And so that meant she was going to be by herself in the house by herself. She didn't have kids that lived there. And being with her and just listening to her tell her stories over and over again, it just taught me the importance of sometimes just being in somebody's space.
yeah.
And then from there, I began to see that people sort of gravitated to me that I didn't even know. I'd meet in a store and then they tell me their whole life.
Mhm,
And so I realized that purpose wise, there was something more that the higher power wanted from me, and that he had been sort of laying little breadcrumbs the
mhm,
whole time, but I didn't understand it. And so that's how that idea of service really took hold.
Hmm.
Um,
Man, starting so young. I mean, building that relationship, But like you say, when it's purpose, hey, it'll get you there, regardless of which way you try to go. It'll pull you back. Yeah, that is awesome. And so I know you talked about being on top of things, and as far as being a faculty director, being up to date is very important as you lead the staff.
yes.
So as we look forward in counseling to what's coming on the other side of this pandemic. We got people who moving forward, people who can't move forward. And so it's going to be a lot of stressors, I guess, for the next foreseeable future. Have you all switched up anything, or are you all doing any new trainings with your staff to counsel people through this?
We're doing several things. I'll speak on this at several levels. Capella University really is a premier online university. And when the pandemic happened, they pivoted immediately. They were able to get individuals who worked in our actual corporate offices. We have several, get them in external. We also, Strayer is one of our partner universities. And so they were having to close down some on ground sites because of the COVID, that pandemic. And so, with that pivot, which is important for us to learn to pivot, also, in my particular school, we immediately started looking at how we were going to meet the needs of our students because we knew that students were going to be impacted just as faculty were being impacted. Some would be teaching their kids at the same time they were trying to work from home. And one of the things that we did was immediately was look at how we were going to do what we call our residency. And residency is when we come together for a week and we actually focus on those in person. In person, we focus on those counseling skills. So, the active listening, open-ended questions, those sorts of things, role plays, videos. So we had to determine how we're going to meet the learner's needs now that we can't come together face to face. So we quickly revamped our residency courses and put them virtual. At the same time, we realized the need for telehealth. And so we started providing training not only for our faculty to assist them with telehealth, but also for our students. And so that has really helped us broaden our base and also give back to communities because now we see that telehealth is everywhere. It's not just for counseling services. I've had telehealth medical appointments where I've been sitting just like this, talking with my medical provider. And so I think that we were able to pivot quickly and get ahead of the curve. At the same time, now that we're basically a year into the pandemic, we begin to look at, how is this downturn in the economy impacting our students? And certainly, like other universities, brick and mortar and online universities, we see the impact because we still have lots of individuals who are not working. So how are we going to be able to support those individuals in their return to work? So we've got some projects that will be coming out. I already have Sophia, which was released last year to the public, and that was offered free of charge and individuals could take courses. And a lot of people took those courses and they're able to transfer them. At the same time, once we made sure that that program was running the way that it needed to, we then now offering it as a subscription base because before we offered it free. And so we're working with other business partners and university partners to see how we can help them meet their need as everyone tries to get up to scale with this online learning environment because now you got your traditional students who may be going back on campus, but you've got your non-traditional students who were on campus, but because of how the pandemic is serving them in work, they're not able to be on campus and take care of their kids and so forth. So we have really been looking at how we can help kind of show the market how they can now meet this need. And so I feel very fortunate to be a part of that work that we're doing at Capella University, and SCI is our parent company. What we're doing.
Man. And so now I can't let you off the hook, Dr. Tyler. If you're going to say that you've been really training everybody to get ready for the return to work, just thinking about the audience and like I say, we still dealing with it, but then we got other life instances that hit. So, two-part question: first off, how have you been really building up your own counseling and coaching business doing this? And then when you do get those clients who are struggling, what are some tidbits you tell them as they get ready to enter back into that field?
Thank you, Kendrick. That's two good questions. I have met and I've had a lot of different people that I've worked with over the last year, and I'll be honest, because things have been very tight for some folks. Some folks, I just met with them, and I just did it pro bono because to me, it was better to help someone make a sound decision versus just growing my paying client list. And so I think the common thing that I have tried to provide for them as a framework is don't quit. My company is called DQ Consulting, LLC, and DQ stands for don't quit. And you'll see it from time to time in my hashtags because I just feel like you have to be reminded don't quit because right when you quit is when the change occurs. And so, I was speaking earlier about someone who was without a job for a year. That person, they were not when we first shut down, they were trying to deal with the fact that they've got a child now that they're going to have to school at home. And then they were losing their job. So that was their focus. Once they kind of got their routine, then they started looking for work. And again, they were finding that they were overqualified for basically everything that they were applying for. And so I spent a lot of time coaching them through that process and looking at their skills. What transferable skills do you have? And so, believe it or not, the person had lots of transferable skills. They had multiple degrees. And so they found a position several months ago, but it's in a different arena.
Mhm.
And then we've been coaching through how do you live, how do you work in a different arena? Because they came to that job with a schema about how things should operate. And it didn't operate that way. And so now, they're about 3 months in. And so now they're settling down and understanding that it wasn't as the hill wasn't as hard to climb as they thought it was. And so for me, that's what I try to get all of my clients to understand that you have to stay the course. You have to see things clearly. And sometimes that means, my writing coach says, she wants us to throw up on the page.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes like getting all the stuff out, so
Mhm.
that you can then put on a fresh pair of glasses, but sometimes we feel as adults, we can't show any weakness because it means that we maybe have failed ourselves or we're failing our family or our kids, but everybody feels vulnerable at some point. And so helping individuals to understand that that is okay so that we can move forward. And for that person, I would give them little exercises to do based upon what we were talking about. And that would be their homework. And one was to basically just get it all out, get it all out. And once they were able to do that, then they were in a place emotionally and then mentally where they were able to follow through. They would receive job leads and they wouldn't apply. They just wouldn't apply. And then they slowly started applying because at first they were being turned down. So they stopped. They got, disheartened and
Yeah.
they wouldn't apply anymore. And I could understand that. And then they got to a place where they could apply again. And then what happened when they got their job, they applied like on a Thursday night. They had an interview the next morning. Somebody was reaching out to them, the recruiter. And so it went from there. And so for me, it's like coaching them through that hopelessness feeling that they may be that hopeless, I'm going to say feeling, but that space that they're in. Because sometimes I think we just get in a space and we don't know how to get out. And so helping them get through that, knowing that it is better on the other side is what I've been doing a lot of. And like I said, for each person, it's just different. But I'm big on homework. I'm
Mhm.
big on homework because I think lots of times folks come to counseling or coaching and they expect the coach or the counselor to do the work.
Mhm.
You got to do the work because it's your life and you have to take ownership of that. And so that's what I find that I did a lot of assigning homework to folks and they did it and then they were able to move forward.
That is awesome. Awesome. And so on top of all that work, because you sound so modest, but you plugged in with ABC here, you on the radio, you're doing the TV. What are you doing Dr. Tosh, you got these great shows. So talk to us about those shows and how can we find you?
Well, I'm going to tell you. Talk with Toss Live is on Facebook on every Friday at 9 a.m. I'm live. I've been away for a while and I'm back on. I started back last Friday and it was wonderful to be back. So that's always there. And I posted on Instagram and LinkedIn, and I posted also on my YouTube channel. Now, I had a show last year called Talk with Taz. And so in that show, I was out in the field interviewing folks. I was interviewing people at the Oprah Winfrey, um, Oprah 2020 Vision Tour, I think it was called. So I was in Atlanta, I was in Charlotte, I was interviewing people because I wanted to capture real time folks and how they were making changes based upon where they wanted to be in 2020.
Mhm.
I did some footage that has never been released because the pandemic hit. So I will be repurposing that footage. But I will tell you this. Now, those shows that are already in the can, they're also on my YouTube channel and they're on my Talk with Taz Facebook page. But I will put in a plug here. There's more to come.
Mm.
Just as I've been coaching other people, I've been working on some things. I've got several projects that are going to be coming soon, and one of them will be a new show. And that show is born out of my desire to help people and to showcase individuals who are doing the work, who have overcome adversity. Because again, adversity comes in many different ways, in many different levels. And so in my new show, I will be able to do that as well as, have some fun also. So you'll get a chance to see a different side of me. But the bottom line is the message for that show is still going to be about service and moving forward. And so that's coming in 2021. I will say also, I've got a couple book projects that are coming that I think also just align with my brand. My brand is about service. My brand is about people being the best that they can be. And the one thing that I will say, you didn't ask me this, but I'm going to say this.
Mhm.
The hardest thing sometimes is as coaches as in coach and athletic coaches also is wanting more or seeing something that the individual doesn't see.
Mhm.
And I find that to be quite interesting, but also quite challenging. And so, as I look at my brand and coaching and mentoring and trying to be a motivator, I have to remind myself sometimes that
Mhm.
I see what other people don't see and that I can't take anyone any faster than they're willing to go. My hope is that by doing things in different formats, just like with Dr. Wish and the Guide to Healthy Schools, that I will be able to bring that message to people in different ways so that they'll be able to catch it and then they will begin to do the work that they need to do. So all of that's coming in 2021. And so folks can locate me. I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Teresa Smith, aka Dr. Taz.
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter. I am also on Facebook. I still have my old Dr. Teresa Smith Facebook page. If you stumbled there, I'm also on Talk with Taz page that's on Facebook. And of course, I'm on Instagram, Dr. Teresa Smith, and of course, my YouTube channel. And I do have, which is Dr. Taz, and I do have my website, which is Ask Dr. Taz, AskDrTas. So I'm all over the place.
Mhm.
But my goal is if I can make a difference and help someone to get started on their path, then I feel like I'm fulfilling my purpose. And that's very important to me. So I appreciate your letting me put those plugs in, Kendrick.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate you taking some time to talk about all the good stuff you got going to get someone connected to that. Because, like you say, just getting somebody on the right track, and the awesome part is that's rewarding in itself for you. So we got to get it going. We got to keep the work out there because people need it, especially in this time. So thank you for today, Dr. Ty.
Thank you so much, Kendrick, for inviting me to be on KTV Live. I think
Hey,
I got it right.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, all right, that'll do it for us then. All right, y'all. This is KT for KTTV signing out. 100.